see here.
You're a good meow meow. Yes, you are. You're a good meow meow.
No, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to rename it. All right. Here.
I'm here or you got work.
Sally. Rename Dennis's phone to Dennis and Shushan. There we go. All right, we're live, everyone. Shalom, everyone. Shabbat shalom on this very muggy day up here in Jersey. Very wet and foggy day. But I'm glad you guys chose to listen to our study that we got for you today. And I'm glad you chose our YouTube to watch and join us on this wonderful Shabbat day of Abba Yahuwah's. So we're going to continue our regular readings today. We will be starting at Leviticus 16 to 17, and we got a short group so far, but I'm pretty sure some of our sisters from Cali are probably going to be coming in the next hour or so, since their time zone is so much different than ours up here. So, and even different from our Mishpaka that are down south. So usually our sisters from the West Coast are usually a little bit behind us. So they should be coming in maybe another hour or so. So here we go. Let's see here. Leviticus 16. And as always, I'm going to be putting on the shared screen my Word software parallel here with the Samaritan Pentateuch, Targum Onkelos, and the Septuagint. So here we go. So Leviticus 16, how the high priest must enter into the Kadash place, okay, the set-apart place. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe after the two sons of Aaron died in bringing the strange fire before Yahuwah, so they died. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, speak to Aaron and your brother, and let him not come in at all times into the set-apart place within the veil before a propitiatory or a mercy seat is most likely what that's referring to there. And let me just make sure there's no background noise here. All right. So it says here, within the veil before the mercy seat, which is upon the Ark of the Covenant, or the Ark of Witness, your translation might say. Okay. And he shall not die, for I will appear in a cloud on the mercy seat. Thus shall Aaron enter the set-apart place with a calf of the herd for a sin offering, and a ram for the whole burnt offering. So the bull is going to be the sin offering here, as we can see, and the ram, which is, by the way, a grown-up lamb, is the whole burnt offering. He shall put on the set-apart linen tunic, and he shall have on his flesh the linen drawers, and shall gird himself with a linen girdle, and shall put on the linen cap. Cap is a very modern word being used there. Turban would be a little bit more culturally accurate there. They are set-apart garments. He shall bathe all his body in water and shall put them on. So this is like ritual purity here. So the priests, before they even do what they have to do in the tabernacle, they would have had to purify themselves. And he shall take of the congregation of the children of Yashrael 2 kids of the goats for a sin offering, and 1 lamb for a whole burnt offering. And Aaron shall bring the calf for his own sin offering, and shall make atonement for himself and for his house. And he shall take the 2 goats and place them before Yahuwah by the door of the tabernacle of witness. And Aaron shall cast lots upon the 2 goats, 1 for Yahuwah and 1 for Azazel. And I just want to make a little note here, because a lot of people will say Azazel is the goat. Azazel's not up being or a fallen being. If you look very closely at this verse, it's saying that they're sending one of the goats to Azazel. Azazel is not the goat, okay? Azazel is a being in the desert that you're going to see later in the chapter as it gives a more decent context here. It is sending basically one of the goats alive to this person called Azazel in the wilderness or in the desert, okay? So again, that's the context there. All right, so Azazel's not one of the goats. A lot of people get confused by that, and some people try to claim that because they're against certain apocryphal literature that clearly shows that Azazel is not a goat. Okay, so that's why people want to propagate that, and they want to make you think one of the goats is named Azazel or whatever. So anyway, verse 9, and Aaron shall bring forward the goat on which the lot for Yahuwah fell, and shall offer him for a sin offering. Okay. But the goat upon which the lot, the scapegoat, came, he shall present alive before Yahuwah to make atonement upon him, so as to send him away as a scapegoat, and he shall send him into the wilderness. Okay. All right. Aaron shall bring the calf for his sin, and he shall make atonement for himself and for his house, and he shall kill the calf for his sin offering. Okay, and he shall take the censer full of coals of fire off the altar, which is before Yahuwah, and he shall fill his hands with fine compound incense, and shall bring it within the veil. And he shall put the incense on the fire before Yahuwah, and the smoke of the incense shall cover the mercy seat over the tables of the witness, and he shall not die. So right now, those that are joining us right now, we're at Leviticus 16, verse 13. So it's talking about the incense that is being put on the fire. It shall cover the mercy seat, which is over the tables of testimony, tables of witness, which that would be, basically the Ark of the Covenant is where you have the two tables that Moshe writ the Ten Commandments about, that the mercy seat is over the tables of testimony. It's talking about he shall not die. So this is what Aaron and his sons have to do because of what happened in the previous chapter with the strange fire. So now Yahuwah is giving more commandments about how to ritually purify the tabernacle and all that, and all the offerings they have to give and all that. So verse 14, and he shall take of the blood of the calf and sprinkle with his finger on the mercy seat eastward. Before the mercy seat shall he sprinkle 7 times of the blood with his finger. Okay, let's see here. So sin offering for the people. And he shall kill the goat for the sin offering, that is for the people before Yahuwah, and he shall bring in of his blood within the veil, and shall do with its blood as he did with the blood of the calf, and shall sprinkle its blood on the mercy seat in front of the mercy seat. And I believe that would be exactly like 7 times the amount of times he's sprinkling the blood on the mercy seat from what we saw earlier in this chapter. And he shall make atonement for the set apart place on account of the uncleanness of the children of Yashar, and for their trespass in the matter of all their sins. And thus shall he do to the tabernacle of witness, established among them in the midst of their uncleanness. And there shall be no man in the tabernacle of witness when he goes in to make atonement in the set apart place, until he shall have come out, and he shall make atonement for himself and for his house and for all the congregation of the children of Yashar. And he shall come forth to the altar that is before Yahuwah, and he shall make atonement upon it, and he shall take of the blood of the calf and the blood of the goat, and shall put it on the horns of the altar round about. And he shall sprinkle some of the blood upon it 7 times with his finger, and he shall purge it and set it apart from the uncleanness of the children of Yasharal. So now here comes the fun part. Now it's going to be talking about the goat that is sent to Azazel, okay, the scapegoat. And he shall finish making atonement for the set apart place and for the tabernacle of witness and for the altar, and he shall make a cleansing for the priests, and he shall bring the living goat. So this is the second goat. And Aaron shall lay his hands on the head of the live goat, and he shall declare over him all the lawlessnesses of the children of Yasharal, and all their unrighteousnesses and all their sins. And he shall lay them upon the head of the live goat, and shall send him by the hand of a ready man into the wilderness. Now, unfortunately, many people are confused by this because there's a certain book they don't want to accept as scripture, so they don't understand why this priest is putting his hand on the goat, spiritually transferring all the sins of Israel to this scapegoat, okay, which is sent to this being called Azazel. But because people don't want to accept the book of Enoch, they'll never understand why that is so. And all I'm going to say is that Azazel in that book is called a scapegoat for sin. Makes perfect sense. But because people don't want to accept that book, well, they'll never understand this in context. So, oh well. Anyway, verse 23. And Aaron shall enter into the tabernacle of witness and shall put off the linen garment which he had put on as he entered into the set apart place, and shall lay it by there. Okay. And he shall bathe his body in water in the set apart place, and shall put on his raiment, and shall go out and offer the whole burnt offering for himself and the whole burnt offering for the people, and shall make atonement for himself and for his house. So Aaron has to now give this sacrifice, this atonement sacrifice of, I believe this is the whole burnt offering, right? So this is to be given as for not just his sins, but his family's sins and all the sins of the people. Now you see this later on. Paul is actually quoting from here. And where is it, Mom? Hebrews 10?
I think so.
It's either Hebrews 8 or Hebrews 10, where Paul talks about the new covenant is so much better.
It's 10. Yeah.
It's so much better because of this, because Aaron once a year, I think he even mentions Aaron's name, or at least says the Levites would have to once a year, Day of Atonement, would have to offer a sacrifice, not just for their sins, but for the sins of the people and for their own household. So Paul is referencing Leviticus 16, by the way. He's actually referencing the same event, okay? And shall make atonement for himself, for his house, and for the people, and for the priests. He shall offer the fat, aka this is what in context it means by don't eat the fat, okay? So I'm about the fat of the sacrifices, not fat in general, okay? He shall offer the fat for the sin offering on the altar, okay? So this is the context of that. A lot of people don't understand that, and they think you're supposed to cut fat off of your steak. That's not what the context of the commandment is. Not trying to be mean here, but I'm just saying here, people are taking stuff out of context.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so it's talking about the fat of the sacrifice when it says the fat belongs to Yahuwah, okay? Mm-hmm. All right. And he that sends forth the goat that has been set apart to be let go. Sorry about that. So we're at verse 26 of Leviticus 16. So he will send forth, this is the living goat that's going to Azazel, okay? Mm-hmm. Send forth the goat that has been set apart to be let go, shall wash his garments and bathe his body in water, and afterwards shall enter into the camp. So every time the priests have to do something, they pretty much have to cleanse themselves after almost everything that's included in the service of the tabernacle and all that. And the calf for the sin offering and the goat for the sin offering, whose blood was brought in to make atonement in the set apart place, they shall carry forth out of the camp and burn them with fire, even their skins and their flesh and their dung. And he that burns them shall wash his garments and bathe his body in water, and afterwards he shall enter into the camp. Okay. The yearly Feast of Expiations. Interesting. Header there. Feast of I guess that what would be expiation means? Probably means like humbleness. I'm curious. Let me just see something really quick. I just want to see what that old English word actually means. Expiation.
Can you see what it means in Hebrew?
Oh, okay. So that's what it is. Guilt or wrongdoing, atonement. So I just searched it online. What that word means? That Middle English word. So Festival of Atonement. Yeah. So
Hebrew?
the Hebrew, I think, is Kippur or Kapur. So that would be the Hebrew of it. Kapur means atonement. Yom, day.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So Yom, Yom in Paleo would probably be pronounced Yom of Kippur. So Day of Atonement, or Day of propitiation of your sins. Right here, this is what people don't realize, is that literally, if you have a decent translation, it will tell you what you're supposed to do on this day. But unfortunately, some modern translations hold to rabbinical interpretations of annoying yourself, unfortunately. Like a lot of the Catholic Bibles will put fast, even though this word does not mean fast here. So as it says here, it says, this shall be a perpetual statute for you in the 7th month, on the 10th day, or Yom of the month, you shall humble your souls. Okay, so you're humbling yourself. Humbling yourself of itself is not equated to fasting. It means repenting. Okay, you shall humble your souls and shall do no work, the native and the stranger who abides among you. Now, among you, again, that phrase among you means among Israel. So that means they would be grafted in, a stranger that's grafted in, Romans 11. So this is for the natural born Israelite and for those that want to join themselves to Israel to be part of Yahuwah's family, that want to worship Yahuwah rather than the pagan gods. So this is for the stranger and the native born. So, but the bigger context here that I would want people to take away, the actual command is to humble yourself. That's the command. Now, like I said, there's rabbinical interpretations in the Talmud about that command, which they add to Torah by misunderstanding that command. And I don't want to get into that because we've already done studies about that. We've already done Day of Atonement studies, I think, the past 2 or 3 years. So if you're more interested in knowing how to keep the Day of Atonement, I really recommend you guys go to the channel, check that out. But I will just say this. The Hebrew word anah does not mean fast. Actually, the Hebrew word for fast is sum, which is used in Isaiah 58. So you can check that out for yourselves, but 2 completely different words. So just FYI on that. Anyway, verse 30, for in this day he shall make atonement for you to cleanse you from all your sins before Yahuwah, and you shall be purged. This shall be to you a most set apart Sabbath. Okay, so it's a very important Sabbath. I think in the Greek, it actually literally says a Sabbaton of Sabbaton. So a very Kadash Sabbath. Arrest and you shall humble your souls. It is a perpetual ordinance. And again, most of them will say humble your souls. Again, afflict has been misinterpreted by a lot of people. That's why a lot of people assume that it's talking about fasting. Okay, afflict doesn't mean always necessary physically afflicting your body. Okay, that's a Catholic understanding. That unfortunately,
Also Jewish.
yeah, like you know how the Catholics will whip themselves to afflict themselves, and they do weird things. Like you ever seen you never saw the Da Vinci Code, but That's a little bit of what they, and that's actually reality what they do in the Catholic religion. They'll whip themselves because they take Paul's words about I've joined Messiah's sufferings, and they take a extreme literal of it. So you'll see some crazy like extremist Catholics start whipping their backs and whipping themselves. So afflict yourself doesn't always mean physical. That's the reason I brought that up. So yeah.
Doug, I know I'm late, but did you hear that the Pope died today? That Benedict died today, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he died. So we're gonna see what's gonna come.
I'm surprised that he lived that long, to be honest, because the last time he was Pope, what was it, over a decade ago?
Yeah.
So
I
I'm
thought-
surprised he even lived that long. He didn't look that good when he stopped.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, I think I think that was purposeful why he stopped for a short time. There could be something to do with that Revelations prophecy about that. I personally think the guy that took his place is the false prophet, in my opinion. But I'll have to wait to see whether that's true or not, whether that's going to come about or not. Francis,
That is extremely unusual for a pope to do.
Yeah, well, Francis, he's not doing himself any favors for the first decade he's been a pope. He's made enemies out of like pretty much any person that takes the Bible literally. Doesn't like him. So, and that includes even Christians, because they realize what a lot of stuff he's been doing. He's doing a lot of blasphemous things. Sitting between the cherubim on a mock throne. Just stupid things that he does. And it's like either he's really dumb and he doesn't know the Bible at all, or he does know the Bible and he's doing it on purpose and he's the false prophet. And, it's one or the other with Francis. It's really one or the other. But yeah, that's interesting that Benedict passed away on the Sabbath. That's interesting. Since there are curses for not keeping the Sabbath, so it's kind of interesting.
And now since he died on the Sabbath, but we don't really know when he died.
Yeah, well, I don't know exactly. Supposedly he passed away today. I have no idea. I don't keep track with the whole Catholic Church, and I really don't keep track when their popes die and all that. So I have no idea when exactly he gave his last breath. But yeah. And yeah. So we're at verse 32 here. It says, "The priest whomsoever they shall anoint shall make atonement, whomsoever they shall set apart to exercise the priest office after his father." So this is very important here. This is why I don't believe what they're setting up in that land right now is a real legitimate Levitical priesthood, because with all due respect, they don't come from David or Levi, those people over there. And they can't just appoint whoever they want. Clearly in Torah, it says that the priestly office after his father, meaning after Aaron, and he shall put on the linen robe, the set apart garment, and he shall make atonement for the most set apart place and the tabernacle of witness, and he shall make atonement for the altar and for the priest, and he shall make atonement for all the congregation. And like I mentioned this before, I think Sister Sadia just got in. Paul in Hebrews pretty much completely borrows the concept from this chapter about that the priest would have to offer a sacrifice for his sins, his household sins, and the sins of all the people. So this is where Paul gets that concept, by the way. So yeah. "This shall be to you a perpetual statute to make atonement for the children of Yasharal for all their sins. It shall be done once in the year," just like Paul talks about once in the year, "as Yahuwah commanded Moshe." So that's the end of Leviticus 16. This is the origin of the Day of Atonement commandments. And it's kind of interesting that these commandments kind of came forth because of what Aaron's sons did the previous chapter. So it's kind of funny. It's like It's like, well, now because your sons brought strange fire, I had to cleanse my altar and everything. Now I'm going to give you some more commandments here. And like, okay, so now you got to do this to make sure you guys are purified. There's even a commandment in this chapter that we read that actually says no regular Israelite can go into the tabernacle when Aaron is doing this service. So Yahuwah made some adjustments to his law after the strange fire incident. So yeah, he's like, because now, and see, that's the thing too, is usually, and doesn't Paul say this, Mom, in the New Testament as well? He says, because of sin, the law became bigger because of sin.
Yeah, he says something like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we see that commandments were added because sin increased.
Right.
And so it's kind of like Yahuwah had to give more commandments because we kept messing up.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, all right, now I'm gonna have to give you this. Now I'm gonna have to give you that. Can't have a regular Israelite go into the tabernacle when you guys are giving offerings and all that. Okay, so now we're at Leviticus 17. Okay, so Mom, do you want to read?
Sure.
Okay.
Yahuwah said to Moshe, speak to Aaron and his sons and to all the children of Israel and say to them, this is what Yahuwah has commanded. Any Israelite who sacrifices a cow, a lamb, or a goat in the camp or outside of it, instead of bringing it to the entrance of the tabernacle and presenting it as an offering to Yahuwah in front of the tabernacle of Yahuwah, that man shall be considered guilty of bloodshed. He has shed blood and must be cut off from his people. This is so the children of Israel will bring to Yahuwah the sacrifices they are now making in the open fields. They must bring them to the priest, that is, to Yahuwah, at the entrance of the tabernacle, and sacrifice them as fellowship offerings. The priest is to sprinkle the blood against the altar of Yahuwah at the entrance of the tabernacle and burn the fat as an aroma pleasing to Yahuwah. They must no longer offer any of their sacrifices to the goat idols, which I'm just looking for a second.
Seder probably, yeah. Because a lot of the nations would worship satyrs. They would make graven images of satyrs.
Yeah, it could be a male or female. Okay.
Yeah.
Where was I now? It was no longer any of the sacrifice of the goat idols to whom they prostitute themselves. This is to be a lasting ordinance for them and for the generations to come. Say to them, any Israelite or any alien living among them who offers a burnt offering or sacrifice and does not bring it to the entrance of the tabernacle to sacrifice to Yahuwah, that man must be cut off from his people. Any Israelite or any alien living among them who eats any blood, I will set my face against that person who eats blood and will cut him off from his people. For the life of a creature is in the blood, and I have given it to you to make atonement for yourselves on the altar. It is the blood that makes atonement for one's life. Therefore, I say to the children of Israel, none of you may eat blood, nor may an alien living among you eat blood. Any Israelite or any alien living among you who hunts any animal or bird that may be eaten must drain out the blood and cover it with earth. Because the life of every creature is its blood, that is why I have said to the children of Israel, you must not eat the blood of any creature, because the life of every creature is its blood. And anyone who eats it must be cut off. Anyone, whether native born or alien, who eats anything found dead or torn by wild animals must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he will be unclean till evening. Then he will be clean. But if he does not wash his clothes and bathe himself, he will be held responsible.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much self-explanatory. Now I just want to go ahead, Sister Marissa, while I'm looking for something. Go ahead. I see you got your hand up.
I have a question. So the 613 laws that came, is that what was added because of sin? Because you said that there was.
Yeah, I mean, as far as in general, even if we go back to the garden, right? He gave one commandment in the garden. Those 613 were not given in the garden. He gave one commandment in Genesis 3, right? Or Genesis 2. Don't eat from the tree. That's the only command he gave in the garden before sin, right? So if we go even on a general perspective, what Paul's talking about in the New Testament makes sense. He's basically saying because sin increased, the law had to increase, meaning, okay, like every time Yahuwah added a command is because we kept getting more sinful in our indwelling flesh. We kept.
People only go back to 10 commandments. They don't know about 613, right?
Yeah, like the 613, like what I'm trying to say is it didn't even exist in the garden. Those were added because of sin. So like you had, right, I'll give you an example. Like the fall happened, right? What happened after the fall? Yahuwah gave a first sacrificial system, right? He put skins of animal on Adam and Eve, right? So was that there before the fall? No, that commandment came after the fall. So in a general sense, the law became more extent because sin kept getting greater and greater and greater.
Decreasing. Yeah.
So that's what Paul means in the New Testament when he says that.
Right.
So like you have the fall, then you have Genesis 6:4. And even if we go to the pre-flood days, right, Genesis 6:4, what happened after Genesis 6:4? You get to Exodus and Yahuwah's like, don't do what those nations are doing. Don't sacrifice your children to Molech. Why would Yahuwah even have to tell them that?
Yeah.
Because in the pre-flood era, most likely, they were sacrificing their own children to devils, most likely. The intermarriage between man and beast. Why does Yahuwah have to give a commandment about don't be laying with a beast for copulation?
That's right.
Because it was happening in the days of Noah. So this is what Paul means by because sin increased, the Torah increased.
That's right.
The reason we have like 600 or whatever, rabbinical experts want to say, like they know the exact number of the commandments. I mean, I guess they might know the exact amount, but like regardless of the amount, the law got to that point because sin got so far, and we kept because. Really, before the pre-flood era, we could make the argument that sin wasn't as varied; it was isolated. Like when you think about it, right? What's the first sin that happened after the fall? A brother hated his brother in the heart, right? So that really was the only sin you really had, hatred. But when the Watchers came and Genesis 6:4 happened, they revealed stuff to mankind that created more sin. And so it kept getting greater and greater and greater. So the law had to get greater. The law had to get more commandments because there was more ways men were finding out how to sin because of what the B'nai Elohim, the sons of Elohim, did. So you can see that from the pre-flood days, that alone caused the law to be greater. Then after the flood, and they're going into these lands, they're going to the Canaan, the land where Yahuwah's where Yahuwah's driving out the Canaanites and all that. He's giving them more commands even at that point. Like, listen, you don't do this, you don't do that. Because these people have done the abominations that I hate. So, in a most literal sense, Paul was right because sin increased, the law had to increase, and even numerically. If you don't have the fall, Yahuwah wouldn't need to give us all these other commands. If Adam and Kua did what they were supposed to do, you would not have all these other commands. You know, you would not have to worry about Yahuwah telling them, don't lay with a beast, don't offer your child to Molech. He wouldn't need to tell them that if the fall never happened. Go ahead, Mom.
Just an example, even on a lesser than those kind of things scale, he had to make a statute that a man could not marry sisters
Yeah.
because of what happened with Rachel and Leah, because there was so many problems with that situation.
Yeah.
That he had to make a statute about that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
One thing.
Mind you, Jacob did not ask for that either.
Of course he did.
Just to give the whole context of the
Of
story.
course, yeah.
That the sin was them two. They were jealous of one another. Them two, and that came from the fall too. What you got to understand too from the fall is what happened to not just Adam's flesh, what happened to Kua's flesh, Eve's flesh. She now has inclination to want to rule over her husband. And so that's what you got to understand, the full concept of the fall. Okay. Satan wants to flip the order of things. He wants the woman to be on top. That's his idea. And so that's what you got to understand. So from Satan's point of view, if he can get these women there that are both married to Jacob fight one another, that's all Satan and their indwelling flesh going on. So that's what you got to understand about that. And really, the problem was Jacob did not want to marry both of them. Their father causes all that. Their father caused it all. And that's what you got to understand from the whole. If you read the whole story, Laban is the one really in sin there, because he promised one daughter to him, tricked him. So that's really what's going on. But see, most people don't pay attention to that. They just pay attention to the sisters fighting. They don't pay attention to who caused all that. Laban caused all that, because he was supposed to only give one of his daughters to Jacob. And Jacob even said ahead of time, he's like, I only want Rachel. I don't want, he even said to him, I don't want her. Why did you give me your other daughter? What are you doing?
Yeah, but Joseph also was a trickster.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like backfiring on him, but
Yeah. Laban, he was definitely being influenced by another spirit.
Oh, yeah.
He was a pagan the whole time. He never converted.
Right.
He never, even though he's Jacob's in-law, he never converted. He, through a whole story in Genesis, he still had idols and everything. And then Rachel, I think Rachel's the one that stole his idols. And then Jacob found out, and he's like, get rid of those. What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? He basically told him to ditch them. And he's like, throw them at that tree, or ditch them at that tree. So, but that's the whole concept of what really happened, and what caused the problem really was Jacob's father-in-law, if anything.
Oh, definitely.
But going back to the sacrificing the devils thing, I know a lot of people might be confused about that. This is another reason why what happens when you reject certain books like the Book of Enoch. This is what happens. You won't understand certain things like this. Why is Yahuwah concerned about them sacrificing the devils? Okay, this happened in the pre-flood world. Okay, and this was actually a prophecy that was to be fulfilled later on. And literally in the Book of Enoch, it says they will sacrifice to devils. So there's an actual prophecy in the Book of Enoch that says that mankind will inevitably sacrifice to devils. So again, the law has to increase because sin increased. Okay, so now Yahuwah has to tell them, you are no longer going to sacrifice the devil. So we just read about it in this chapter, Leviticus 17. Paul even references it here in 1 Corinthians 10:20. But I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils and not to Yahuwah. I would not that you should have fellowship with devils. And again, I know there's like this weird doctrine going around that a devil is just a statue. No, it's not. No, it's not. No. Again, this is what happens when you reject the Book of Enoch. This is what happens. I could go over and over and over a lot of weird doctrines people get because they don't want to accept certain books like Enoch. I don't even need Enoch to prove to someone that a devil is an actual spirit. Okay, it's not a piece of wood. It's not a wooden statue or a statue of gold or silver. Okay, devils are real. Unclean spirits are real. It's not just a statue. And if you actually look in the context of it, after Genesis 6, all of a sudden you have unclean spirits, you have demons, you have devils. Why? Because the sons of Elohim, aka angels, okay, Genesis 6, slept with the daughters of humans, daughters of mankind in general, not one lineage, in general, on a wide scale. So that means the majority of the women of the pre-flood era were sleeping with fallen angels. That's what was going on. And it doesn't matter what family, yet the majority of the families out there. That's why Yahuwah points out in Genesis, he says Noah was not just righteous. A lot of people want to focus on the righteous part, but they forget the other part. It says he was righteous and perfect in his genealogy.
Yeah.
Okay, you should focus on that. Why is Yahuwah pointing out he's also perfect in his genetics? Maybe because 80-90% of the gene pools of mankind was getting corrupted with the Genesis 6:4 problem. That's why Yahuwah's pointed it out in that same chapter. He's saying Noah was righteous and perfect in his genealogy. That's the Greek word there, genia, for generations. Okay, so that's what's really going on there. So now you have these giant hybrids, titans, Greek mythology, okay, coming about. From them, they don't have a righteous spirit in them. So what you got to understand is demons are the spirits of the giants. So the reason we have such a bad, unclean spirit problem today, and even the time of Messiah when he was on the earth, is because after Genesis 6, you have all these giants that are dead now, and these spirits have nowhere to go. The spirits of the giants have nowhere to go. They're not created by Yahuwah, so they can't go to heaven, can't go to Sheol, they can't go anywhere. They're roaming the earth. They're like what we call today ghosts are demons. That's what a demon is. So a lot of people that want to, get into the whole studying of ghosts, they're playing around with stuff they don't realize. They're playing around with demonic forces that they don't realize, and the whole ghost hunting nonsense and all that. But anyway, so there's all these demons now come from the giants, because the giants were told to kill one another in the pre-flood, so they're forced to kill one another. So then you have these spirits roaming around that constantly are afflicting people, constantly hating people, and Enoch even tells you why they hate us. But of course, no one wants to read that book. But anyway, so, it's explaining like half of what we're reading here in the Torah. But, oh, yeah, don't read that book, right? It's not scripture, right? Okay. Yeah. No, I really get a pet peeve with that. I'm sorry. When a book is explaining half of what we're reading in the Bible, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm just going to stop there. Yahuwah knows I could go all day on that. But it is important to understand what he's talking about, that they would no longer sacrifice to devils. This is something that was happening in the pre-flood and the post-flood. They started sacrificing to idols, and the cultural concept of this was because the gods of the pre-flood world were now chained in Tartarus. Just to give you guys a little history lesson, or even a pagan history lesson, all the gods of mythology are real. They are essentially the Watchers. Okay, so like Azazel became someone else in mythology. Samyaza became one of the other gods, and so then they started, when they came down, slept with the women during the pre-flood age, they were getting humans to outright worship them. Sound familiar? Isaiah 14:12. I'll be like the Most High.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and guess what? Gadriel was over them as well. Satan was over them. It even says that in the book of Enoch as well. Okay, that Satan, he was not part of the Watchers, but he was in a class that was over them, a leader of, in essence, we could say an archon, or a leader that's above the 200. And so we see that through just pagan history. You can look at these watchers became their gods, the heathens' gods. So, and once they got chained up in Tartarus, 2 Peter chapter 2, okay, once they got chained up in Tartarus, oh, we can't worship our pagan gods anymore. What are we going to do? They made idols. So what Yahuwah is really talking about here is in Leviticus 17, it says, no longer will you sacrifice the devils. He's saying, listen, I know this custom that these other nations do. They like to sacrifice to idols which represent their gods. You're not going to do that. You have to bring your animal you're going to sacrifice to the door of the tabernacle because I don't trust y'all. Y'all got indwelling sin in you. I don't trust you. And I want to make sure you don't do what the Canaanites do, what the Hittites do, what the Jebusites do, what the Hivites do. So Yahuwah is basically putting extra commandments here as parameters. Like, listen, I know you guys are prone to sin. I'm going to help y'all out. I'm going to give you commandments that are going to prevent you from doing what these other nations are doing. So that's what's going on here. But anyway, I digress. But I just wanted to explain that because some people might be thinking, what the heck, sacrifice the devils? What is he talking about?
Oh.
So
Just keep reading and you'll find out.
So because most people today in Christianity, there's this weird doctrine like devils are statues. And I'm like, I'm just like, I don't know where people get these doctrines, man. I really don't. It saddens me that people don't understand demons are real. And there's even people in this walk that think there's no physical devil. Yeah, it's very frustrating. Very frustrating. Yeah. Who would want that? The devil would want that, for you to think that he doesn't exist. That works to his advantage. So, but anyway, I digress. I apologize for that rant, but I felt it was necessary. All right, so we'll be back on. We're gonna go back. We're gonna get back on, and we're gonna go to Ayub, the book of Job, chapter 6 and 7 next. So this was the end of our Torah reading. So if you guys have any questions out there, any concerns, feel free to reach out to us. Feel free. If there's any brothers and sisters out there that came across this YouTube page and you guys need fellowship, please let me know. All right, so please stay tuned. We'll be back shortly. Shalom.